I'm bigcal and welcome to my world. Today I want to talk a little bit about the Sony Playstation 2. This is the single greatest selling video games console of all time, beating out such popular consoles as the NES, SNES, Mega Drive / Genesis and even the Nintendo Wii, which was the previous video I did, which is the second best selling video games console of all time. The reason that I didn't do this console right after I did the PlayStation 1 video is because I'm doing these videos in order of when I actually got the consoles. And I didn't get this until 4 years ago, I believe it was. So when I originally had the PlayStation, I adored it, but when the PlayStation 2 came out, for whatever reason, I wasn't that interested. I just wasn't. And the Xbox is what I ended up getting. I was only truly interested in because my friend had it and Halo was awesome and I wanted one as well. My brother had the GameCube for a while before trading it with one of my friends for his PlayStation 2, which is this very console here. This belonged to one of my friends first, then my brother traded his GameCube for it, and when my brother had it, I don't recall ever playing on it. Which is weird, because like I said, I loved the PlayStation 1. So you would assume that I would have been hyped for the PlayStation 2, but I just wasn't. And I don't know why, I cannot explain it, because the game library that this console has is incredible. And I overlooked the shit out of it until 4 years ago when I finally got this console for myself, and my brother very kindly gave it to me. You can't have it back. Yeah. So when I got the console, the PlayStation 3 was out. Obviously I didn't have a PlayStation 3 at the time, got one a couple of years later. But getting hold of PlayStation 2 games at the time, and still to this day, is incredibly easy because it was so popular. The games were sold in large quantities, there's so many of them out there, and they're all dirt cheap. There are a couple that will end up costing you, the price of a brand new game today, like £40 to £50 depending on the game. But for the most part, even some of the best games on the system, you're gonna get for under a £5 easy. And when I first started collecting for this, obviously because it was a previous gen system and had been for a couple of years at that time, I was able to get most games in offers, pre-owned offers, like 4 for £10 on some of the lesser titles, 4 or 5 for £20 on some of the better titles. At the time I probably could have got them cheaper on eBay, but I didn't really know any better. It was really just sort of the beginning of me getting into collecting video games again. So like I said, I ended up buying a ton in these offers and then later on eBay, and as such I've got a few piles here, and this is the most games that I own for any one system. I believe there's about 70, maybe 72. Doesn't sound like a lot compared to what a lot of other people out there own, but for me this is the biggest collection of games I own for any one console. And the reason for that is they were so cheap and there were so many games for the console that I actually wanted. It is insane how many great games are out there for this system. Crazy. But before we get into the games, let's have a quick look first at the controller. The DualShock 2, which is essentially identical to the DualShock 1 that was released for the PlayStation 1. Basically the controller for the PlayStation consoles hasn't changed from PS1 to PS2 to PS3, with the exception of the the original PlayStation 1 controller not having analog sticks. That was later released. It's only at the PlayStation 4 that they finally changed some of it around and made it a bit longer, I think, than there was that screen in the middle, and I'm not the biggest fan of how it looks. I've never had the chance to hold one and play it, so I don't know what it's like, but if it ain't broke, why fix it? For 3 console generations we essentially used this controller, and it's a fantastic controller, perfect for playing all the fantastic games available on the system. Saving the games, of course, while the Xbox at the time had a hard drive built in, the PlayStation 2, just like the PS1, had memory cards. These are now 8 meg memory cards instead of the measly 1 meg we got for the PS1, which is odd. The PS1 1 meg, I owned 3 memory cards, so 3 meg for all my games, and I cannot have a save game for all of my games across all 3 memory cards without having to delete 1 or 2 to make room for another game. But despite owning probably 3 times as many games for this console as I do for the PS1, I've yet to run out of space on the one 8 meg memory card, so that's pretty good at least. Although I would like to buy a couple while they're cheap now, just for sort of future-proofing my collection. But yeah, and the great thing, of course, about the PS2 as well, backwards compatibility. The great library that this console has is also backed up by the incredible backwards compatibility library of the PlayStation 1. And of course you can use a PS1 memory card in, rather than like the PS3 we have to create a digital memory card for all the PS1 download games and things like that. You can also use the PS1 controllers that work with the PS2 games as well, I believe, except for probably the original controller without the analog stick. And then I also found out recently, very recently, that there's actually a port and expansion bay on the back here, where a hard drive could be installed into the PlayStation 2. I even mentioned it to people when I found it, and a lot of other people had no idea such a thing existed on the back of the PlayStation 2. Honestly, I have no idea really what it's for, if you can save games to your hard drive, things like that. It's probably mainly just used for hacking the console these days, I don't know, that's how things are. But anyway, PlayStation 2, this is the original fat version, and you can either lay it down or sit it up like this. Great console. There is a slim version as well that I didn't even know about till about last year, and I've never seen one in person. Instead of the drawer opening out, it's like the PS1 where the lid flips up, so pretty cool. And of course, also with the PlayStation 2, one of the reasons why I think it was so popular is, as well as being a video game console, plays PS1 games, PS2 games, it's also a DVD player, which at the time when this came out, DVD players on their own cost roughly the same price as the console. So if you're going to get a DVD player, why not just buy the console, and you can also play games on it for no extra cost other than buying the games, but with the DVD player you have to buy DVDs as well. So all these factored into this console being a huge success. And while it's perhaps not my favourite console, I do prefer the SNES, purely for nostalgia reasons, probably the PS1, and I really do adore the Wii console for some of the games on that. Objectively, taking sales, taking the game library, and the fact it's backwards compatible, it's hard to argue against the PlayStation 2 actually being the best game console of all time for all those reasons. So let's dive in and take a look at some of the games. Now, unlike the last 2 videos, the Xbox and the Wii/GameCube video that I did, I'm not going to go through every single one of these games. For starters, there are too many. Secondly, the PlayStation 2 is in no way underrated in any shape or form, so I don't feel the need to have to go through all of my games in the collection to prove to you that yes, it's a great console. Fairly certain everybody out there watching this video knows the PlayStation 2 is fantastic. So I'm just going to go through this, still not particularly small pile, but some of my favourite games and things like that for the system. So we'll start off with my collection of Dragon Ball Z games for the system. We have Dragon Ball Z Budokai. Great fighting game. The PS1 Dragon Ball Z games were the 2D sort of Street Fighter style games with clunky controls, terrible graphics and just boring as shit gameplay. Now we finally get the more 3D style where you can fly around, launch attacks way easier, you've got the story modes as well. It all started with the Budokai game. Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2 I have on the GameCube, as you saw in the previous video, but then Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3, which people claim to be the best Dragon Ball Z fighting game, I have here on the PS2. Excellent game, no doubt, but not quite my favourite. I do prefer the Tenkaichi Budokai 2 and 3 games that I own on the Wii. But it is a great fighter, and the difference between the first and the third is pretty huge. It just feels and looks so much better. Then the first Budokai Tenkaichi game is here on the PS2 as well. Pretty cool. I definitely prefer Budokai 3 to the first Tenkaichi game, but the second and third blow even this one away. And then we have a couple that I didn't know existed, again, until rather recently, maybe a year ago. I think I actually showed these on my very first games pickup video just before I moved last year. So we have Dragon Ball Z Infinite World, which I still have no idea what the game actually is, because it says on the back the best of the Budokai series, and the pictures, the screenshots look like it's, you know, the fighting game similar to, you know, the Budokai games, except the story mode is so freaking weird. I've never actually been able to get past the first part, where it's kind of like Superman 64 where you're Goku and you're flying through rings, and the controls are terrible, and I genuinely cannot find all of the rings to fly through in the time limit that you're given. So, no idea what the hell the rest of the game is like. And then Super Dragon Ball Z. This one is going back to the 2D style fighting games, but updated. And it's a hell of a lot more fun than the early ones like the PS1, and more fun than some of the Super Nintendo ones. I haven't played all the Super Nintendo ones though, so don't go crazy on me. But yeah, that's my Dragon Ball Z game collection for the PS2. Again, now that my best friend had when he had the original Xbox, and it was a game we played a ton on that, but it was cheaper for me to get it on the PlayStation 2, so that's what I did. And it is NHL Hits 2002. Ice hockey. Not really a big fan of ice hockey, or even a little fan of ice hockey. I don't really care for it. I don't watch it, I don't play it, but the game, holy shit, this is so much fun, especially because it's the Hits version, which basically means you get to start fights and beat the shit out of your opponents. You can, you know, fly past them and smack into them, knock them through the glass and things like that. It's so much fun. The Xbox version, the reason that I probably should have rebought the Xbox version, even if it was a little bit more, just because of the hard drive, and you could put your own music on, you could listen to the you know, custom soundtrack while playing the game, which is why we loved it so much, listening to like the Offspring while beating the shit out of each other on NHL Hits. Really super fun game. And I also own 2003 for the PS2, which is over here somewhere, just as fun. Next up we have the God of War games for the PlayStation 2. God of War 1 and 2. Both are absolutely terrific, you know, great sort of, you know, 3D style, beat 'em up, you know, mashing buttons, destroying the shit out of everything style game, but with those huge crazy boss battles. The first time anyone plays God of War 1 is just an experience that I wish I could wipe my memory of, so I could replay it again, just to see, you know, how everything looks on the boat in the water, and then the huge monster comes up and you have to fight it, and insane. Both games absolutely fantastic. And as I keep mentioning throughout these videos, one collection of games I keep acquiring, you know, by no real design of my own, is Star Wars games. I do have a couple more which are over here, but they're not really worth mentioning. But the one I want to bring up is Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. Now, despite what you think of the film, the game I think is actually really underrated. It's not the best Star Wars game out there, but for what it is a ton of fun, and I have completed it 100%ed it, which is not very often I do for games like this. Especially when you have to collect certain things, sort levels and whatnot. But I love this game. It's a great game, very underrated Star Wars, you know, style platformery, murdery type game. Really cool. One of the big things with the PlayStation 2 at the time, and what it could do graphically compared to the PS1, was big open world sandbox style games. And the first one that we got that really blew everyone's mind was Grand Theft Auto 3. And then along came Vice City and blew everyone away a second time. my favourite of the Grand Theft Auto games. Maybe of just the 3D ones, but I think I might even put it above the Grand Theft Auto 2 on the PlayStation 1. Excellent game, looks absolutely stunning, or at least it did at the time. It doesn't hold up too well, but you know, the whole beach and sea setting that you get there, and it's all based on the Italian mafia, which I absolutely love, is why I love this game a hell of a lot more than San Andreas. I honestly don't care for, just because it's no longer the Italian mafia and I don't care about the gangs in it. So Vice City, my favourite of the Grand Theft Auto series. 3D platformers. The PlayStation 2 probably has one of the best selection of 3D platformers available on any one console. You know, even topping perhaps the N64 that had Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, few other games like that. But the PlayStation 2 did have a ton, and one that I found when I was first starting out building up my collection, one of the first kind of games that I wanted to get for it were 3D platformers. I wanted to see what was available. One that I found that was most similar, I guess, to a Mario 64 style game was Vex. Can get extraordinarily difficult in parts. It's not the best game, but it does have those large open world where you have to complete multiple tasks within that world, and the more tasks you complete, the more things you collect. The more things you collect, the more levels you unlock. Pretty much what it is. It basically handles and feels and controls exactly like a Mario game set in the 3D world, except you also have claws that you attack with rather than the lame little punch that Mario did in Mario 64. Like I say, it's not the best 3D platformer even on the system, but it's a somewhat underrated one. Definitely worth checking out. Can be picked up very cheap. Actually, we'll just move that round. Another 3D platformer, Ratchet and Clank, the first in the series. I got this 4 years ago. When I first got the PlayStation, I picked up the entire Ratchet and Clank collection for the PS2. Only played it a couple of months ago. Insane, I know, I don't know why, but I've been playing the hell out of it ever since. Love this game, can't wait to get into the other ones which I do own, and I've even been playing the version on the PSP, size does matter, having a lot of fun with that one as well. Great game. Also got a PS3 version of it now, one of them that came out on that, and I definitely hope we see more of Ratchet and Clank in the future. Wrestling games. Gotta have wrestling games. The PlayStation 2 is known for having some of the best wrestling games of all time. Genuinely, of all time. But first, I'm going to go to a very underrated wrestling game made by Konami, which, might surprise a lot of people. It's called Rumble Roses. Now, on first glance, it kind of looks like, the Dead or Alive Bikini Babes, style game. But despite how it looks and how the women dress, it quite literally is based, I think, on the same game engine that the WWE games were built on. So the controls are absolutely fantastic. The graphics look really cool for the style, the characters, and there are some insane finishing moves on the game that you don't get in the more realistic WWE games, or at least as realistic as they could be. A very underrated wrestling game. Definitely pick it up. And just, try to avoid the whole boobs thing, because, seriously, who cares? So, real wrestling games now. Real. WWE, I do own all of the early ones for the console. I think I own up to 2008 on here, just because I own 2009 onwards on other consoles. But one of the better early ones was essentially SmackDown 5. But of course they didn't call it that. And it's SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. Pretty much the go-to wrestling game on the PlayStation 2 for pretty much everyone. It's an incredible game, cool story, career mode on it from what I remember. But for me, what really puts this game over the top is the roster, mainly for Brock Lesnar and Goldberg. They are insanely powerful. It is so much fun to just pick one of the two and crush everybody else in the game if you want to. really cool game, lots of great features, great match types, great controls. However, I truly believe this game was bettered with SmackDown vs Raw 2006. I have talked about this before when I picked it up for the PSP, but here is the full official version here for the PlayStation 2. The only thing this game doesn't have that Here Comes the Pain does is that roster. Brock Lesnar was no longer with the company, so you can't play as him. There's no Goldberg to smash those people. It's not as fun doing it as like Batista. But aside from the roster not being as good at this time compared to when that one came out, everything is better here. Better story mode. You've got a Raw story mode and a SmackDown story mode. You know, creating wrestlers been improved, more match types. It's just all round better in every department with the exception of the roster, which is no fault of the game makers, it was just how the company was at the time. So this, in my opinion, is the single go-to wrestling game for the PlayStation 2. Game I picked up a couple of months ago, just happened upon it after, it was kind of a coincidence. I was talking about retro games on a retro games forum that I go on, and they were discussing some games that they picked up really cheap that can go for quite a lot of money. One of them was Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, which I have here. Now, the PC version, of what I understand, is the one that goes for the most money. However, you know, if you can pick up any of the other versions, definitely do it. It just so happened a couple of days after talking about the game, I stumbled across it in a local second-hand shop. Cheap as hell, I think it was about £8 or something. It usually goes for upwards of 20 on eBay if you can find it. And it's basically like a theme park game, but with Jurassic theme park, yes. And you get to create dinosaurs with the DNA samples and things. You've got people digging up fossils around the world and collecting new DNA samples, and you have to create the dinosaurs genetically from that, and then you can add new dinosaurs into your park, things like that. And it's a really good, really deep game. I've only played maybe 2 hours of it so far, and my park failed. But I didn't really know what the fuck I was doing anyway, but it looks really good, and one day I just want to sit down for like a week straight and just get my head around all the features and everything that you have to do. Another game I brought up a few times now in these videos, the last video I mentioned it for the Wii was the Wii's version of it, which in my opinion is the best version, but this is the original version that also came out on the PC and the Xbox, and that is The Godfather. Incredible game, and the reason that I picked up the original version even though I already had the Wii version is that this one is a limited edition 2-disc version. Started, you got this cool little plastic sleeve, steel booklet, and then there is a bonus disc which is really great. You got a making of documentary, things like that. You got interviews from some of the guys who were actually in the film that did voiceover for the game. Instead of basically taking the voices and lines from the movies and just pasting them into the game, they actually got some of the original actors back to re-voice the exact same lines, just so it sounded better rather than just stealing it from the film essentially. So definitely a great game. I would advise definitely picking up the 2-disc set at least, and there is a version that comes in a special coffin box which I would love to have, but I'm just not willing to pay all that money just for a coffin. Not after I already did such a thing with a WWE game and the Undertaker coffin version. Another 3D platformer, one of my favourite on the system that I originally had on the Xbox and then stupidly sold. And it is also a game based on a TV show, which a lot of times doesn't go very well, but this one is fantastic, and it is Futurama. The cell shading matches the show pretty well. For the time anyway, so it still looks great to play today. The story is unique. It's not based on an episode of Futurama, but it does have a lot of references to episodes and things like that. Great controls for the most part. You get to play as multiple different characters, and it is a fantastic game. I highly, highly, highly recommend Futurama if you like 3D platformers and if you're a fan of the show. And a couple of my most recent games. Let's see, we'll start off with this one that you'll have seen in my recent video game pickups video. We have first of all American Chopper 2 Full Throttle. I was a big fan of the American Chopper show when it was actually on TV. I don't think it's on anymore. They did the whole senior versus junior thing for a couple of seasons where they both had their own shops and pretty much weren't talking to each other. But I think now it's officially been cancelled and that's the end of it. Now the game, I own the first one on the PC and I quite enjoy it for what it is, and I knew that there was a second one. I've owned the first game for quite a few years now and I knew there was a second, but for some reason at the time when I was looking for it, it claimed it was only available in, NTSC version from America, which is no good to me. So I wrote it off as a game I would never own, and then I saw it online to buy, PAL version for the PlayStation 2. Why the information I got was completely and utterly wrong, I'll never know, but here it is. It was cheap and it's not the best game, but you get to build your own custom bike, do missions on the bike, driving around on it, performing certain missions, racing, collecting things, time trial limits, things like that. You earn points and get to buy more parts or fabricate it even to add to your bike. So pretty cool, especially if you're a fan of the show. And finally, one of the best games that I picked up for the system ever, not just recently, Dragon Quest VIII, The Journey of the Cursed King. I love Dragon Quest. I've only recently got into it in the last year or so, but I just love this game series so much. Dragon Quest VIII here on the PS2 was actually the first time we ever got a Dragon Quest game in the UK that I'm aware of, at least a proper one. We did get, I think, some of the Dragon Quest Monster games for the Game Boy, or Game Boy Color or whatever, in like early 2000 or something, because I actually own one now. But aside from that, this was the first one that we got. We've had some re-releases now, some of the earlier ones for the DS and things like that, and 3DS. But this was the first one that the UK officially got in the series, Dragon Quest VIII, and it is often claimed as the best in the series. I've played a couple of hours of it so far and I'm totally in love with this game. It is incredible and it's pretty much the one game I'm going to be playing for quite a while now until I finally complete it. Epic game, definitely pick this up if you're a fan of Dragon Quest or just RPGs in general. Screw Final Fantasy, this is the RPGs that you want to play. So, those are all the highlights of my collection that I want to go through. If you want to check out what other games I own, look on bigcalsworld.co.uk and then check out the game collection page, and all of my PS2 games are listed there. And that's the PS2. Incredible console, backwards compatible with PlayStation 1, insane library for the PlayStation 2. Almost all of the best games can be bought for dirt cheap because it was so popular and there were so many copies. And it plays DVDs. It still plays DVDs today. I don't own a normal DVD player anymore because the last 2 or 3 I bought broke after a few months. PS2 here still plays DVDs. And I seem to remember the time when it came out, there were programs and documentaries and things looking at the PlayStation 2, and they took it apart and basically claimed that the DVD player within it was like dirt cheap and would probably break after a year or so. Yeah, didn't quite work out like that, did it? So, I'm Big Cal, thanks for watching. If you have any memories of the PlayStation 2, or if you want to recommend me some games that I don't own in my collection, leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and read your thoughts or whatever. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, share it with friends, whatever. Thanks for watching, I'm Big Cal, I'll see you again next time.